So welcome Extreme Automotive Addiction fans, my name's Mike, I am your host, I am so glad you're here. This is part 2 in a 3-part series talking about cars in my collection, bucket list cars, different things, details about them. I'm going to go over each one individually. If you missed part 1, go back and check it out. It's a video before this one, and then come back and watch this one, it'll all make sense. So with that being said, let's jump right in and we will start with the vehicle right here to my right. This is a 1992 GMC Typhoon. Now this is definitely a bucket list car for me. I've wanted one of these vehicles basically since they came out. I can remember back in 92, I ended up going down to a local dealership. I bought a 92 Pontiac Grand Prix. Really cool car, very beautiful car, a lot of fun, but they had one of these on the lot. I believe it was in black, and I said, hey, I will buy this Grand Prix if you let me drive that Typhoon. And they did. They let me take it out for a little test drive, a little spin. They knew I wasn't going to buy it. I couldn't afford it at that point in time. But I remember thinking, man, this thing's really got a lot of acceleration, a lot of pull. And then a few years later, I had a 1971 Chevy long bed, half-ton pickup. It had a 400 big block, turbo 400 transmission. And I remember I was in a hurry and I pulled up to a stoplight. And I was aware of a vehicle on my left. Wasn't paying attention to what the vehicle was. So when the light changed to green, I stepped on the truck and I took off pretty aggressively, not all the way into it, but I was getting into it pretty good. And I'm aware of the fact that this vehicle is sitting right next to me. I can see it out of the corner of my eye, but still I'm not paying attention to what it is. So at that point, I just stepped all the way into the floor and figured I'm going to leave this joker safely behind. And the vehicle to my left just went on by me. And it was a GMC Typhoon. And I thought, man, I've got to have one of those someday. That's a fast vehicle. A lot of people don't know what this is. It's a 4.3 liter V6 turbocharged all-wheel drive. They launch great. Now, by today's standards, they're not very fast, but back in 1992, this is one of the fastest production vehicles you could buy. It was blowing off Ferraris, Corvettes, everything out there. It was a contender, and it was really amazing. And I always remember thinking, what a great concept to do this and all-wheel drive, to get it to hook up. Very, very fun vehicle to drive. I enjoy driving it. So a lot of people look at it and go, well, what's so special about that? They didn't make a lot of them. There was only 135 made in this color. It's got one repaint. It's super clean. It's got 100,000 miles on it. And you know, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be sold for the right price. I could probably be talked into selling it, but I really don't want to. It is a bucket list car, and I'm kind of working towards just having pretty much all bucket list cars in here, with the exception of a couple. They really are. So I don't really want to get rid of this vehicle, but you know, I guess like they say, though, for the right price, maybe we could talk. So here is another quasi bucket list car. The real bucket list car was a Grand National, A7 Grand National. That was really what I was shooting for. I didn't really know about the turbo Regals, didn't realize that they did them. I never just put 2 and 2 together basically. But I ended up running across this car, started looking at it, very clean, very low mileage, very well cared for, and I realized that, you know what, it's the same vehicle, but if I were to get a Grand National, I'd pay like another 8,000 or 10,000 more than I pay for this car. And it's the same vehicle. It's got the same drivetrain. It's a 3.8 liter, fuel injected, turbocharged V6. They were turning out around 240 horsepower, 250 horsepower, somewhere in that range back in the day. But again, for 80s, this was one of the fastest production cars out there. It was just blowing off everything, and nothing was able to really stay with it. Now this is a limited, they only made 1,035 in 87, so this is a pretty rare car. It's pretty clean, it's got the typical 80s paint job. It's got a few dents and dings and everything like that. I learned in kind of some research on it, I guess it was involved in some hail damage, and I just think there were probably some dents and dings that couldn't be brought out. But the car is impeccable, inside's impeccable, underneath impeccable. Under the hood is just beautiful. It's amazing. It's got a chip in it, it's got a cold air intake, and it's got exhaust. And you know, by today's standard, it's not very fast, but it's still a lot of fun. When that turbo spools up and it sets you back and goes, it surprises some people. It's still a great car, rides like a Buick, very comfortable, all the amenities, could daily drive this car very easily. And yeah, I just think it's a very cool car. Plus, it just so happens it was manufactured the same year I graduated from high school. So yes, now you know how old I am. Okay, so let's talk about another definite bucket list car. And you guys are going to be like, yeah, you got a lot of bucket list cars. Well, it's true, I really do. Trust me, we're going to get to a couple that aren't bucket list. But this one is definitely a bucket list car, simply for the fact of those rear fins. I always thought that was a great design. I thought it was a beautiful design. They only did this for 2 years, 1959 and 1960. This is a 1960 Impala. I personally like the 60s better than the 59, but that's just me. It's personal preference. This car is a very nice cruiser, very comfortable. I love the stance of it. Pretty much the way you see it is the way I picked it up. I haven't done anything to it with the exception of having the windows tinted and then a few mechanical things that I had done to it, but nothing major. I love the color combination. I love the fact that the paint's a little dull. It's not beautiful. It's not flashy. Interior is clean. It's just a clean car. It's got a 350, turbo 350 transmission. You know, the motor's getting tired. I know that, but for as much as I drive it, I'm not that worried about it. It still seems to run good. Thing starts every time, idles right down, goes down the road. It's just a fun car, and I love the design. I love the style of it. It looks so good, and like I said, the stance of it is perfect. I just can't say enough about this car. So this is definitely a keeper car. It's a car I don't see going anywhere. There again, it's kind of like the Typhoon. If someone offered me probably a lot more than the car is really worth, I would consider selling it, but I don't see that happening, so it's probably going to be in my shop for a very long time, and I'm very happy and content with that. Another bucket list car. Even when I didn't really care for Corvettes, didn't think that much about them, I can honestly say I always like the C2 design. I just think it is the most beautiful design that Chevrolet ever put into a Corvette, and it's very unfortunate that they only lasted from 63 to 67 and then they went to the C3 design. I just think the design is beautiful. I think the setup is beautiful. It's a car that I wanted for a very long time. Just stand here looking at the lines, the designs in the hood, everything like that. I love it. It's a very fun car to drive. It rides very nicely, performs very well. It's not a numbers matching car. It's just a crate 350, 4-speed manual transmission behind it. This is another vehicle that I feel needs to be a manual transmission, and so when I set out to find this car, I was definitely wanting a manual transmission. I love the red. It's got black interior. It's got the Corvette rallies on it. It's set up just the way I would want to set it up. There's nothing I want to do to the car. I just want to enjoy it, drive it, and have a good time with it. Everything works on the car, and like I said, I was really surprised at how well it rides, how well it handles and holds the road. It's nothing like today's new sports cars, but it's just a very enjoyable vehicle to drive. No desire, no intention of selling it. It would take a boatload of cash to pry it out of my hands, so you can pretty much bet this car is going to be around for quite some time. Okay. I said in the last video, part 1 of this series, that there are just some vehicles I feel that every classic car owner should own at some point in their life. One of those is a Tri-Fi Chevy, 55 through 57. These cars are really iconic. They're iconic with hot rodders. I always wanted one, definitely a bucket list car for me, and I was always looking, but you know, the prices were up there and I never found anything that just clicked. This car clicked. I found this online. I thought the asking price was pretty reasonable. It was just down the road from me, like literally 10 minutes from my house. Went over, I looked at it, and truthfully I didn't really have any intention of buying the car. Guy took me for a ride in it, checked it out. I went away, I started thinking about it. I thought, you know what, I can swing this. I made him an offer, he accepted the offer. I went over the next day and picked it up and drove it home. No regrets whatsoever. Had a few little minor mishaps with it, nothing major, little simple fixes, but this car is just such a nice driving, riding car. The way it was designed, the way it was set up, it's got a crate 350, 700R transmission, vintage air conditioning, aftermarket gauges, disc brakes in front. It rides really, really nicely and comfortably. It handles well. It's got plenty of power. It's not a speed demon at all. I mean, it's just a crate 350, probably like a 290 horse crate 350. But it's just clean enough and nice enough that I love it, and it gets attention, and you know, people give me thumbs up all the time, but it's not over the top. It's just a nice driving car. Definitely, if you can own a Tri-Fi, I think you should. I just think that they're fantastic cars. It's a fantastic design, kind of a turning point for Chevy. They're really known for their Tri-Fi Chevys, and you know, everybody loves a 55, 56, or 57, and if they don't, they should. Okay, last but certainly not least is my 2002 Chevy Corvette Z06. I've had a lot of Corvettes. I've had a C7 Z06, I've had a C6 Z06, had a regular C6, had a number of C5s, had a number of C5 Z06s, C4s, got the C2. I've driven a number of C3s. The only one I really don't have any experience with are the C1s, and give me time, I'll get there. But I've always come back to the C5 Z06. Definitely not the fastest vehicle I've ever owned, not the most technologically advanced, not the best handling, but there's just something about the C5. There's something about the design, the lines of it, the performance of it based on like the cost and everything like that, I just think it's such a great bang for the buck as far as the performance goes. And I love the car. I have a lot of fun with it. I enjoy this vehicle. Probably the only thing that I would consider changing realistically would be it's got a short throw shifter. And I used to think those were pretty cool, but it's very notchy. I don't see this as a vehicle I could throw through the gears very fast. A lot of other vehicles I could shift a lot faster, a lot easier. So I wouldn't mind putting the stock shifter back on it, but just keep the aftermarket shift box. I think that the stock shifter, the knob, the balls that they had on top of their shifters in the C5 were just ridiculous. I didn't like them at all. I guess they worked at the time, but I'm not a fan. But this car is set up exactly the way I would set it up. It's got the aftermarket wheels and tires, it's got aftermarket sound system, it's got the tinted windows. I wouldn't mind throwing a cold air intake on it. It's very quiet, so I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more exhaust under it. Truthfully, if I just had the money and I was going to do it, I would probably throw a Pro Charger on this car, but I don't want to spend that kind of money on this car, at least not right now. I've got other projects and things I want to do. This is definitely not a bucket list car because I've had Corvettes throughout the years, and I cannot consider it a bucket list car, but it's definitely a car I enjoy. It's a car I see sticking around. I don't see it really going anywhere. You know, I've said that about other Corvettes before, and then someone comes up with an offer or trade or whatever, and I end up doing it, and then I come up with another one. But I think I will always have at least one Corvette in my shop as long as I can drive, as long as I'm able to. And right now I've got two, and I enjoy this one. Yeah, it's not going anywhere, I don't think. No, I don't think it's going anywhere. Okay, so that's going to do it for part 2 of this video series. We've got, by my count, 6 more vehicles to talk about. If you like the video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe to this channel, Extreme Automotive Addiction. P.O. Box and Instagram will be in the description below. Be looking for part 3, the finale of this series, coming within the next couple of days. God bless. Take care. Have an absolutely amazing day.